This, my fellow kids, will be a... My fellow slimes will be a long one, my slimelets. This will be a long one. It will. This CEO was killed in her TV studio by Desi Crime. Oh boy, this is gonna be very like Desi Studios. We're gonna see what that one's about. We're gonna see what that one's about. We'll do that. All right, here we go.
It was a freezing February night in upstate New York. Snowflakes swirled in the wind, settling over a quiet strip mall in the small town of Orchard Park. Inside one of the units, a modest television studio lined with bright posters and soft studio lights, two people stood on the brink of an ending. On paper, they were a power couple. He, a charismatic businessman from Pakistan. She, an architect with a sharp mind and a warm smile. Together, they had built America's first English-language Muslim television network, a dream born in the wake of 9/11, a vision of countering stereotypes and celebrating community. But dreams can hide night.
Oddly enough, the stereotypes are becoming more and more true nowadays than they have ever been. A problem, but it's happening.
Nightmares. Behind the glossy photos, the awards, the handshakes with community leaders was a marriage on the brink of catastrophe. What happened next that chilly Friday would shock the nation, ignite debates about culture and religion, and leave an entire community questioning how well they really knew the people they celebrated. This is the story of Asia Zubair.
I'm just being careful with the music because I don't want to get yeeted. Yeeters that fetus.
Hi everyone, welcome to the Desi Crime Podcast, a show where we dive deep into some of the craziest cases from around South Asia. I'm your host Aishwarya.
And I'm Aryan.
And the case that we have for you today is so violent, I was already
questioning where my homie was. I was already questioning why she's sitting here alone.
Haven't been able to stop thinking about it ever since I heard of it. I run in kind of a unique setup today. This is a little bit different, right?
I would argue much better also to be able to record a Desi Crime episode without being in close proximity to you.
Funny, that's what I was going to say. It's so much easier when I can...
wait, what? What the heck? Huh? Did they have a fight? Is she contaminated? Is he contaminated? Is one of them sick? Could that be the case? Because why are they separate? And why are the shots fired?
Just mute him, guys, and that's an option all of you have all the time, by the way.
He just really just shot fires. He just shot at her like, it's good to be not close by to you. Holy. Funny. You should all add a ditto face toggle to your model. It would be funny. I don't know. The problem is always that toggles are shitty with Vroid. They're just really ass.
We are in this setup to experiment how we can accommodate all our travel shenanigans and still provide Desi Crime episodes to you. But the Desi Crime team is off this week. It's a 9-10 day long break and we're all traveling. But we thought because you need your dose of Desi Crime, we will record one remotely for you. I'm in my house in Bombay recording this. But because we put in so much effort for you guys to give you episodes even while we're vacationing, the least you can do is buy the one and only, the Desi Crime book. For those of you who don't know, and I'm kind of surprised if you don't know, we have a book out. And you can pre-order it right now in the link in bio. And it releases on the 19th of August. If you happen to be outside India or you just love our voices a lot, the Audible version of it, exclusively available on Audible, is narrated by yours truly, me and Aishwarya, with 2 exclusive episodes in it that haven't ever been covered on the podcast before. So if you want the audiobook and you want the physical book, as you should, head to the links in the description. And with that, Aishwarya, on with the case for today, one that takes us all the way to New York.
February 13th, 2000.
New York! 2009! Friendly Fire is. Yep, Friendly Fire. They're feeding the slop to piggies just like you.
1:07 a.m. Pakistan Standard Time. It's a Friday, the kind of Friday that turns into Saturday when sleep refuses to come. The televisions in bedrooms across Pakistan are turned to an endless loop of breaking news. All channels are flashing the same headline. A turboprop plane, Continental Flight 3407, has crashed into a suburb of Buffalo, New York.
Tonight, investigators are focusing their attention on the actions of the crew operating Flight 3407.
The same burning fuselage, the same speculation about snow and pilot error, the same shrill sounds across the screen. It's the kind of night when you feel like nothing worse could happen. But then, Mary Travers Murphy's cell phone rings. Mary is the town supervisor of Orchard Park, the sleepy Buffalo suburb where nothing ever happens. She's been fielding calls from reporters.
Isn't that ironic? These always take place in places where nothing ever happens. It's like really weird, right? Like the Sweden one we watched, same thing. This is a place where nothing ever happens until it actually does.
All evening because of the plane crash. This call, she thinks, will be more of the same. But it isn't. On the other end of the line is the Orchard Park police chief. Quote, Mo Hassan just walked into the station, he tells her. He says his wife is dead, end quote. Mo was the affectionate nickname of Muzammil Saeed Hassan, a prominent New York banker turned television network founder of Bridges TV. Mary paused, expecting to hear that Asia Zubair, Mo's wife of 9 years and the co-founder of Bridges TV, had a heart attack or an accident. Instead, the chief's voice drops. He tells her, almost whispering, that they found Asia's body at her and her husband's television studio. He can't bring himself to use the word decapitated, but Mary senses the...
Oh my god. Whoa. Well, don't lose your head. Wow. Wow. That's terrifying. That's terrifying. Imagine you walk into your studio, right? To just greet your wife, to just like go to your wife, right? And then like you see her headless. It's gotta be a sight. Though then again, we don't know if the husband is involved or not.
Enormity of what he's about to say. In the background, news anchors drone on about the plane crash, oblivious that another tragedy has just erupted in their backyard. That moment, that one phone call in the middle of chaos, would soon become as notorious as the crash itself. Within hours, Asia Zubair's name would be splashed across global headlines. But to truly understand the story of this day and of this couple, we need to go back in time to 1964, when Mo Hassan was born, tipping the dominoes that would end Asia's life decades later. Muzammil Saeed Hassan's story began in 1964 in Lahore, Pakistan. The details of his childhood are hazy, pieces of a puzzle rather than a full picture. But what is clear is that by the time he was 17, he had set his eyes on something much bigger than the streets he grew up on. That year, he left Pakistan for the United States, chasing the same dream so many others before him had crossed oceans for.
Obviously, the American dream. The American dream, obviously. Huh, makes sense. Yeah, classic. A bit interesting that they're also covering interesting that they both of them are covering cases of like Indian Pakistanis, like, right, outside of like their countries. Really interesting, really interesting. I like that. Nice change. Maybe I've done that before, but I don't know.
A dream of success, security, and reinvention. He enrolled at the University of Rochester School of Business, where ambition seemed to seep from his every move. In 1996, he graduated with an MBA and a growing reputation for sharp intellect and persuasive charm. By the early 2000s, he was thriving in the banking world, working at HSBC, where colleagues described him as a man who could sell an idea to anyone who would listen. But outside of conference rooms and client meetings, a darker pattern was already forming. In the 1980s, Mo married a woman named Janice. They had 2 children together, Michael and Sonia. But behind closed doors, Janice would later claim their home was anything but safe. She described him as controlling, violent, and volatile.
Oh, so we got an abusive husband. Interesting. Very interesting.
Their marriage unraveled in divorce, shadowed by allegations of abuse. Mo married again, this time to a woman named Sadia. And again, the pattern repeated. Sadia later told a journalist about one moment burned into her memory, Mo pushing her out of a moving car. She also said he once demanded she let him claim he was the one being abused, a calculated ploy to secure both legal residency and a divorce on his own terms. Friends and family recalled her speaking of beatings, humiliation, and threats that made her fear for her life. Court documents filed years later would state plainly what the woman had lived through. Both of Mo's previous marriages had ended because of, quote, severe domestic abuse. But by the 1990s, Mo Hassan was single again, rebuilding his life one step at a time in the United States.
Actually, okay, just want to wrap my head around something. Asia, who we were talking about in the beginning, is his third wife.
Correct.
Jan.
Oh, so we have a pattern here. The guy's abusive. He gets into marriages. We have a pattern here. Okay. Well, that already is not good. Knowing that how abusive he is. That this would be I don't know. It's just like, if that's already a red flag, that already makes him easily the main suspect.
Anis and Sadia, if I'm getting those names correctly, are his first and second wife. So this dude is clearly not somebody who is either meant for commitment or is the problem himself.
Absolutely. And both of his first marriages, like I said, ended with both those first two wives saying that there was severe domestic abuse. He's now single. It's the 1990s. And now is when he's going to meet his third wife, who's Asya, who we began the case with. Behind Mo are two failed marriages and a trail of allegations he never addressed publicly.
Can I say this? I think I can say this. This man's not worth three marriages. I'm gonna be honest. Why do I feel like that dating somebody who has a failed marriage... Like, that sounds like to me, that's a red flag. That's probably just me, though.
Ahead of him, at least in his own mind, was the possibility of a fresh start. He joined Yahoo Personals under the screen name Muzammil, crafting a profile that painted him as a devout Muslim man in search for a like-minded partner.
Ash, what is Yahoo Personal?
Yahoo Personals, this is really funny, was a dating service, an online dating platform by Yahoo, and it was huge apparently in the late 1990s.
Yahoo had a dating service? I mean, I know that YouTube originally started out essentially as a dating platform. It's just weird that, like, how many, like, things nowadays that we know originally started as a dating platform. That's very interesting. But we just met Duckies. He's got that financial social riz.
It began in the US, then it spread to all across Europe in like the early 2000s. Never heard of this before. Like, I've heard of stuff like Match.com and whatnot. Yahoo Personals, never heard of it. If we have anyone who's used Yahoo Personals ever or who knew it was a thing, please let us know what it was like. I have absolutely no clue. Half a world away though, in Karachi, Pakistan, a young woman named Asya Zubair was immersed in her architecture studies. Born on June...
It's an age gap marriage. It's an age gap marriage. All the big sites had chat. Yeah, but I mean, like, for YouTube, it was originally built to be like a video dating app, essentially. That's why it was originally considered a YouTube. Like, they wanted to make that a video dating app, so to speak, or dating platform, not app. Didn't turn out quite that way.
17th, 1972, to a respected Pakistani family, she was ambitious, bright, and determined to design skyscrapers that would leave her mark on the world. But her vision extended beyond blueprints and skylines. She wanted to bridge her faith with the wider world, to be a part of something that uplifted her community. By the year 2000, yearning for a partner to accompany her in her journey through life, in an unusually bold step for a conservative young woman, Asya logged onto the internet to search for a life partner. That search led her to Mo. Their online courtship was quick, intense, and filled with grand promises. Mo praised her education, her modesty, her commitment to serving the Muslim community. He told her about his vision for a Muslim-run television channel in America, one that could change the rising tide of post-9/11 Islamophobia and present Muslims in a positive light. He said he needed a partner.
Well, they could use that right now again, because, well, things are changing in Europe rapidly. Anyways... Interesting. Weird how these two found together, but then again, wait, didn't he just date an American woman that was also Muslim? Interesting.
With not just faith, but with business acumen and emotional strength. Asya, who had always dreamed of using her talents to build something meaningful, was drawn in. Within months, they were married in an Islamic ceremony in 2000, and Asya left Karachi for the United States.
Ash, so the inception of this relationship was online, correct?
Yep, correct.
And in the mid-1990s, they meet on Yahoo Personal, Yahoo Me, Yahoo Hinge, whatever that is. And there are a few years of this online dating, apparently long distance, and then they get married without ever having, lived in person together.
That's kind of what it seems like. We don't have all of the accounts, so whether he came and visited her, whether she ever went there, we don't know any of that. What we do know is they kind of met at some point in the...
That's crazy work. Never meeting up. Never meeting up. And then, like, immediately marrying straight up is insane. That is insane. they never really had like a dating phase properly, like, or at least like living together, like any kind of like, according to what we have. We don't have all the accounts, but regardless, it's just interesting. Yeah, this is weird.
Late 1990s. By October of 2000, they were married, and they were married in a ceremony, a fairly large ceremony in Pakistan, for which Mo had flown down. After that happened, we know that Asia moved to New York to be with him there permanently. From the outside, it seemed like the perfect marriage and the perfect couple. Mo and Asia settled together in a beautiful two-story home in Orchard Park, which is one of Buffalo's wealthiest suburbs. Their blended household included most children from his previous marriages and eventually 2 more children together. They attended the local mosque together, hosted dinners for neighbors, and became the kind of couple local media loved to profile: articulate, polished, and committed to reshaping the narrative about Muslim Americans. In 2004, they brought Mo's dream to life, launching Bridges TV, the first English-language Muslim television network in the United States. Its mission statement was clear: to counter negative stereotypes of Muslims and show the diversity of Muslim American life. Asia was the vice president, shaping programming and direction. Mo was the charismatic CEO, selling the vision to investors. The Council on American Islamic Relations celebrated their work, honoring them with awards for what many saw as groundbreaking community service. But the vision was broader than that. Mo and Asia wanted to invite in non-Muslim audiences too, those curious enough to learn about a community they rarely saw represented beyond the headlines. In interviews, their enthusiasm was magnetic. They spoke about their mission with the kind of optimism that made people believe. The network was hailed as a breakthrough. In the years after 9/11, American news cycles had often flattened Muslims into one-dimensional figures: suspects, threats, others. Mo and Asia set out to rewrite that narrative. Their network aired cooking shows, children's programs, documentaries, and interactive call-in segments where imams fielded questions about marriage, finances, and faith. They launched a sitcom, Calling Home, about a Pakistani-American family trying to balance tradition with modern life.
A sitcom. I don't know, it seems to have worked. The interesting part is though, the most important part is, how did it escalate to the point that that woman just got unheaded?
News anchors like Naeema Hassan wore headscarves without having to explain them, delivering headlines without being reduced to a token. They secured a place on Dish Network, grew an audience in tens of thousands. Quote, "We want to depict Muslims as full human beings, not as stereotypes," Asia told one reporter. Their motto, connecting people through understanding, was more than a slogan. They hosted interfaith forums, spotlighted Muslim women running businesses, profiled American Muslims serving in the military. On camera, Asia was composed, approachable, her tailored suits and hijab framing a warm smile. Many saw her as the network's heart. She once said she wanted to, quote, "shine a light on the joy and compassion in Islam," end quote, because she was tired of seeing her faith reduced to violence and fear. On camera, the couple were the picture of unity, holding hands, exchanging warm glances, smiling wide for the world to see. A modern Muslim power couple breaking back.
But it's only on TV. It is only on TV. It is never... It is very different outside of TV, because here they're just playing a role.
Barriers together. But away from the bright studio lights and carefully staged photo ops, the story was far from perfect. Behind the closed doors of their Orchard Park home, the image began to fracture. It didn't take long after the wedding for the man who had charmed Asia from across an ocean to disappear. In his place emerged someone darker, someone her friends and family would later say was obsessed with control. According to those closest to her,
obviously, he was abusive in the 2 previous marriages. He's obviously, you know, 3rd time's the charm. He's obviously going to be abusive in this one too. Surprise, surprise. Was going for a bit. Was the head left there or stolen? He found it there, so it was likely, though it probably likely happened somewhere else. Maybe not. They didn't say that the body was there, so I don't know.
Mo monitored Asia's every move. He listened in on her phone calls, read her emails, dictated how money in the house was spent. He demanded her passwords, and when she resisted, he took them by force. With them, he impersonated her in her messages to her lawyer and psychologist. He even wrote letters under the guise of his own mother, praising him while painting Asia as domineering and unstable. He drilled her on what to say if the police or child protective services ever came to the door, forcing her to memorize scripts that cast him as a devoted husband and father. And when she resisted him, the threat was always the same. If she ever left, he would take the children. In her personal logs, she wrote of being deprived of sleep, of being woken by bright lights or shrill alarms until she agreed to whatever he wanted, of being forced to sign memos giving him permission to punish her if she ever contacted the police or social services, of hearing him threaten in a voice she knew was capable of carrying it out that he would, quote, take the children, burn them, and bury them where she would never find them.
What the fuck? Yeah, it appears that he most certainly, probably, very likely did it.
If she disobeyed. She wrote of being shoved, punched, and having objects hurled at her, only for him to tell her it was her fault. If she cried, he would sneer, you're weak, you're selfish, you lack sabr, patience, twisting a virtue her faith cherished into a weapon to keep her silent. There were moments of violence that etched themselves into her body, locked in their bedroom while he sat on top of her until she agreed she was mentally ill, dragged down the driveway and pinned to the ground after telling him she wanted to keep their unborn child, beaten until she agreed to an abortion, only to miscarry weeks later.
Bro, this is a demon. Get this fuck. That is, I smell. Did bro get the penalty? If so, thank goodness.
There was the time he punched her nose over and over until blood streamed down her face, then forbade her from seeking medical care. For a week, she hid indoors, the bruises on her face bearing the shape of his fists.
Ash, it might be conditioning, and it might be sort of the male perspective. I don't know what I can blame on this, but when somebody says domestic abuse, there is an image or a notion that props up in your head. And it is not one as adverse as what you've described. And we've covered cases on Desi Crime like Chamari Lianage and others where an act could be described as domestic abuse. But if I were to describe it, it is psychopathic torture and assault, repetitive assault. Domestic abuse seems to placate that to something more diminished. And maybe I was wrong in assuming, oh, there were fights when you said, I thought, oh, there was a couple that fought, especially because he broke up with 2 of his previous wives because of domestic abuse. This is not what I had in mind when you said that.
I think that
the problem is with domestic abuse is also that oftentimes it's mutual. It's also oftentimes both beating each other or both abusing each other. That's usually something that is never mentioned. Now, is that here the case? Probably not. Very likely not. Most certainly not. But you need to always take domestic abuse cases with a grain of salt, because the more and more we look at the numbers, the more it seems fairly or very close who is the perpetrator. Sometimes it is, like I said, also both doing it. So yeah, there can be very much... There can be very much. You need to be careful with these oftentimes, though here it is likely very apparent who was the one who did the perpetrator.
is so true. It's so common to hear domestic abuse, and us in South Asia are so conditioned to know that it's happening across homes, possibly in our own families, possibly in families that are very, very close to us, familiarly speaking, that we think it's a man who's loud. It's a man who'll break a glass, It's a man who'll punch a wall. It's a man who'll stop the car, get out, let you sit in the car after dinner because he's angry. This doesn't come to mind. I don't know why. And I think it's only after covering all of these cases that they see.
It's also that you have the picture of a man because for a woman it's not visible, really. As a woman is weaker, but yeah. I can promise you, lived experience-wise, I've seen way more domestic abuse done by, or committed by women than by men. But yeah. According to the data we have, it's pretty close who's doing it.
Crime that I realize this abuse is so vicious, we don't hear about this enough. It's crazy. Then there were all of the times she tried to flee, only for him to chase her and ram her car off the road. The countless days he ransacked their home, smashing furniture and appliances until she stopped replacing them altogether, knowing they would be destroyed again. And Asya wasn't the only one living in fear. The children had their own catalogue of horrors, watching their father smash doors with baseball bats, rip televisions from walls, and punch holes straight through drywall. They saw what his rage could do. Once...
Well, American walls, I'm not surprised. Yeah. Then, obviously, the kids would likely also experience abuse, right? Because that man does not care. I mean, he would burn his own children, according to his own words. So, yeah. Interesting.
After a beating so vicious it left him shaken, Mo's teenage son confided to a friend, "My father will kill us one day." Child Protective Services came knocking more than once, responding to repeated complaints. But Mo was calculated. He hid the bruises, rehearsed Asya into compliance. Over and over, he made her repeat the same lines. I am not an abused wife. My husband is good. We are just under stress. Any deviation from the script was met with insults, crazy, psycho, and threats to have her committed to a mental institution. Later in court, prosecutors would bring forward the emails and diary entries that backed up every one of these stories. And then comes the question we've all been conditioned to ask. Across so many Desi crime episodes, the single greatest truth that has emerged is that for victims of domestic abuse, leaving is the scariest option of all. Asya knew this. This was the most dangerous move. The times she tried, Mo hunted her down. He chased her on highways, rammed her car, called immigration to threaten her visa status, and even enlisted members of their own community to pressure her into returning. Her sister Asma would later tell reporters that Asya was financially dependent and terrified of raising 3 children alone in a country that was not her own. She feared what Mo might do to their children if she left them in his custody. And perhaps most tragically, she wanted
I mean, seeing this, the man deserves life in prison. There's no doubt about it. He does. He deserves life in prison.
To believe change was possible. Time after time, Mo dangled that hope in front of her. Therapy, repentance, transformation. The promises came easily. He even wrote letters to imams admitting to anger issues and asking for guidance, though the blame always landed back on Asya for provoking him. The cycle became predictable. A violent eruption, followed by tears and apologies, vows to do better. A fleeting claim, and then another eruption. Survivors around the world know this pattern well. Hope, fear, despair. For Asya, there was no safety inside their home. And yet, in public, the illusion remained untouched. The smiling couple, the model family, the success story. And their biggest success, their television network. But behind closed doors, that too was beginning to falter. Mo's behavior was shifting professionally too. He grew paranoid, short-tempered. Rating dips triggered tirades. He berated staff for minor mistakes, accused his wife for working against him. In one 2008 staff meeting, he exploded at an intern over the wrong coffee order and then fired her on the spot. Employees later told investigators they had noticed the bruises on Asya's arms and neck, but said nothing, afraid of crossing him. In quiet moments with a female colleague, Asya confessed that she hid her makeup bag.
So people were essentially not just watching as well. People were aware. Yeah, it seems more and more that he did the deed. He did the evil. He did kill her. It seems very likely.
Because Mo accused her of trying to seduce other men if he saw lipstick. She wore the same plain outfits on camera because anything brighter, sharper would provoke him. She joked about it to keep the conversation light, but the exhaustion in her eyes told the truth to everyone around. As Bridges TV gained recognition, Mo expanded his reach, networking with political figures, religious leaders, activists across the country. In 2007, CARE honored both Mo and Asya for creating a platform where Muslim stories could be told. On stage, during his acceptance speech, he called Asya, quote, his beloved wife, his rock. The applause swelled, even though just 2 weeks earlier, he had punched his rock so hard that her eye turned black. The accolades did nothing to ease the pressure. Advertising revenues were patchy. They leaned on savings and loans from friends to keep the lights on. Mo began to pin the network's struggles on Asya, accusing her of incompetence. She responded by working longer hours, chasing investors and applying for grants. She also began taking MBA classes, hoping education might give her the tools to leave him and the strength to run the network on her own.
Damn, that's crazy. Hello, Sliza Pluto. How are you doing? Hope you're doing good. Interesting. So it wasn't really, well, the population that would consume this is probably really small, right? So it makes sense that that wouldn't keep that would keep the television program alive, right? The studio, whatever you want to call it. So he blamed it on her. She tried to work harder to not take the blame anymore and probably also leave, which she didn't get to that point.
It gave her hope, but for Mo, it only fed the insecurity already festering. By the end of 2008, Asya knew she could no longer survive in her own house. Quietly, methodically, she began building her case for a divorce. Photographs of her face filled with bruises, snapshots of splintered furniture, copies of the scripts Mo had forced her to memorize, police reports filed during the rare slivers of time when she could reach for help. She confided in her sister Asma and in a handful of trusted friends. She told them plainly she was leaving. In early February 2009, she made her move. She left the marital home, taking the children with her and settling into a separate house. By this point, in early 2009, Asya had documented everything she had experienced in a 21-page divorce affidavit, page after page of detail that stripped away any lingering illusion of their perfect marriage. Her name was still on the lease for the Bridges TV studio, so she insisted Mo vacate the premises or work elsewhere when she needed to film. On February 6th, she filed for divorce, citing violence and inhumane treatment, and secured an order of protection that barred him from coming to her home or contacting her outside her work. For the first time in years, there was a small, fragile space in which she could breathe. But anyone who works with survivors knows, leaving is not the end of the story. It's often the most dangerous chapter of all. Mo couldn't accept it. In his mind, her decision to leave was more than rejection.
Oh, so that's what probably led to that was the one thing where it went just way too far. That was the one thing where it just went crazy. Okay, that was probably the sole reason why he ended her life, if it was him. Well, rationally, it must be him. Logically, it must be him. Some serious bruising. It is. Again, I'm assuming that he probably, with all the violence that he put on her, this next, sure dear, all the violence that he put her through, I am assuming that she probably also had a few broken bones and had to hide those too, or at least a broken nose, because I'm absolutely certain, right? It's much easier to break the bones of a woman than of a man. So that's another one.
It was humiliation, an assault on the control he had built his identity around. In the days leading up to the murder, he called her incessantly, banged on her door, smashed the windows at her home, and
oh, well, they have incorrectly confirmed that it was him.
Left voicemails that swung wildly from pleading to threatening, all of which violated that protection order. He told friends she was, quote, mentally ill and that he feared for his life, trying to recast himself as the victim. And then, on February 12, 2009, 2 days before Valentine's Day, he bought 2 hunting knives. That day, the 12th, was a cold Thursday. Heavy snow fell over Buffalo.
With a hunting knife. Now the imagination. No, that's gonna be rough.
In the early hours, dusting roads and rooftops. Snowflakes spiraled through the air, settling in thin layers on the flat roof of a faceless industrial building in Orchard Park, the strip mall studio of Bridges TV. Schools had stayed open. Asya drove her children to a class.
Now the question comes, did he do it in the studio, or did he do it somewhere else and take her head there? I don't know, weird.
Then to a friend's house for a playdate. That afternoon, she sat in a cafe with her laptop, working through her divorce paperwork. Later, she returned home, made dinner, and played with the kids a bit. All week, she had been careful, staying in public spaces, keeping friends updated on her movements. But that evening, she needed to make one stop. The Bridges TV studio, while Mo was there. She had clothes there to collect and a set of keys and some of their children's things to drop off. She also had some divorce details to go over with Mo. It was part of her effort to keep boundaries clear, to make sure she and Mo could avoid each other while still managing the network they had built. She told her sister Asma she would meet Mo at the station because she didn't want him anywhere near her new home. The plan was simple. Keep the meeting brief, the children waiting safely in the van. Asma could hear the wariness in her voice, the quiet edge of fear. She even overheard her sister.
That meeting did not go well. I'm assuming this meeting did not go well. Have you watched Bonnie Blue, The Big 1000? Nah, probably not. No. True crime, a game of Clue. I mean, yeah, obviously.
Telling Mo on the phone, we can discuss it tomorrow. A plea begging him to stay calm. Before hanging up, Asya told Asma she loved her and promised she would call the next morning. That call never came. At around 5 p.m., Asya drove to the studio in her tan minivan. In the back seat were her 2 youngest children, a 9-year-old boy and a 4-year-old girl, buckled into their seats, unaware of what was about to unfold. She carried a plastic laundry basket in her arms as she walked into the studio she had poured the last few years of her life into. Unbeknownst to Asya,
damn, just straight up orphans. These kids just end up being just straight up orphans. Wow. Wow, that's crazy.
Mo had been prepared for her arrival. Just an hour earlier, at 4 p.m., he went to a local hunting store and purchased 2 razor-sharp knives. From there, he drove to the Bridges TV studio ahead of her and slipped into a darkened hallway to wait. As she stepped inside the studio, the door clicked shut behind her. She set the laundry basket she was carrying on the floor and began walking inside. Surveillance cameras tracked her down a narrow corridor lined with posters, Muslim families smiling beneath bright lights. At the far end, a figure emerged from behind a column. It was Mo. The next few minutes went by like seconds. In Mo's hands were two freshly purchased hunting knives, each about 20 centimeters long. He lunged. Asya raised her arms, instinctively trying to shield her face, but the blades found their mark again and again. Not once, not twice, not thrice, not even 10 times. 41.
41 times! Yikes. Okay, well. Yeah, she had no chance. None, no chance.
Times. He stabbed her 41 times. One pierced her windpipe. According to prosecutors, the entire attack was caught on the studio's surveillance cameras. In the footage, Asya's hands flail as she tries to block the blows. She stumbles backwards and then collapses. Mo keeps stabbing, the knife flashing under the harsh fluorescent lights. Within seconds, her body goes still. Then he switched to the larger knife of the two, the one with the serrated edge. That's when the stab stopped and he instead started sawing through her neck. The sound—
Bro! And that was all in the surveillance cameras? Whoever is the bro that looked through the surveillance cameras, how do I put this? You need therapy. You need a lot of therapy. Whoa. Whoa. Damn, bro. Damn. It's never a psychic stab. It's when they attack without thinking. Well, the thinking is still not set in, probably. Or maybe it has. Whoa.
of metal against bone was faint, swallowed by the steady hum of the studio's equipment. 37 seconds of sawing.
Ugh, bro, that's... what the fuck? I think 1,000 is what we already know, obviously. This person was his ex-wife, by the way. Not yet. Not yet. She didn't even fully divorce yet. That's the problem.
I want us to, right at this moment, have just 10 seconds of silence, because 37 seconds, when we say it out loud like that, doesn't feel like a lot at all. It's not even a full minute after all. But these 10 seconds will make you realize just how long 37 seconds of sawing through someone's neck is. "37 seconds later."
And this now almost 4 times. Bro, whoever needed to look at the surveillance footage, I do not want to have your job, no matter what kind of pay that is.
Later, her head was completely severed, no longer attached to her body. 37 seconds later, Asya was no more. Outside in the cold, her children were still waiting in the van. They played...
She was no more, or earlier, way earlier. After 41 stabs, you're dead, regardless.
With toys, the radio turned to a children's station, unaware of the horror unfolding just beyond the walls. 10 minutes later, Mo emerged. His clothes were stained with blood. He had placed Asya's head in a plastic bag and left it beside her body. At a sink, he washed his hands, then walked out to his vehicle and drove to the Orchard Park police station. Approaching the front desk, he almost casually told the officer on duty, "My wife is at our TV station and she's dead." Mo told the police he felt relief after killing her, comparing it to being, quote, liberated from an Al-Qaeda training camp, end quote. The shock of that statement would ripple through the community for months. He offered nothing more. He didn't say he had decapitated her, turning their studio, their shared dream, into her tomb. He then sat down, crossed his legs, and waited for the arrest. When officers arrived at the studio, they found a scene that would stay with them. It was almost surreal. Detectives in blue gloves moved carefully through the studio, collecting evidence among overturned chairs and pools of splattered blood. They found the 2 hunting knives, the receipts showing they'd been bought only hours earlier, and the surveillance footage that captured the assault from start to finish. On a table, Asya's hijab lay folded neatly.
Bro, this is crazy. This is wild. Goodness gracious. Whoa. Wow.
Untouched by blood. Her head was found beside her body. Above her desk, a plaque from the Council on American Islamic Relations honored Asya and Mo for, quote, championing positive portrayals of Muslims, end quote. The irony was almost too much to bear. Outside the studio, Asya's friends wept. Inside the van, her children waited, still strapped in their seats, until a social worker finally came to take them away. The decapitation was not frenzied. To the officers on site, it looked deliberate. Detective Jeffrey Cox later testified that the cuts were, quote, precise and intentional. Prosecutors argued that Mo had taken care not to damage Asia's face so her mother could view her one last time. It was a macabre gesture rooted in warped logic, one Mo would later explain to a psychologist as, quote, the most honorable way to punish a disobedient wife, end quote. Muslim scholars would go on to...
Oh yeah, definitely. Definitely the most honorable way. Sure. Stabbing a woman. I'm looking at the severity of this, and this one actually, definitely, most certainly deserves the death penalty.
Reject the claim outright, pointing to Islamic law's absolute prohibition on domestic violence and murder, stating a verse from the Quran which says, quote, whoever kills a soul, it is as if he has slain mankind entirely, end quote. Mo's actions were not about faith, they were about control. And then, within hours, word of the killing spread. Local newsrooms, still covering the nearby plane crash, pivoted to the new horror. The juxtaposition, a crash and a beheading, read like the setup to a nightmare. Reporters gathered outside the station as Mo was led out in handcuffs, his face blank. Neighbors voiced disbelief. The Buffalo Muslim community was stunned. Many had seen Asia and Mo as trailblazers, a couple who had given their community a voice in national media. He was such a nice guy, said one neighbor, echoing the tired refrain that services whenever a hidden abuser is unmasked. Others remembered the flashes of his temper. He could be charming, but he had a dark side, a former colleague said. At a local mosque, more than 200 people gathered for a prayer service. Many wept openly. The Imam reminded the congregation that domestic violence is forbidden in Islam. He quoted the Prophet Muhammad, quote, the best of you are those who are best to your families, end quote. He urged men to examine their hearts, to protect the women in their lives. Khalid Qazi, head of the Muslim Public Affairs Council of Western New York, told reporters that domestic violence is, quote, despicable and Islam condones it in no way, end quote. From this tension, a national campaign called Imams Speak Out emerged. It urged imams across the country to devote at least one Friday sermon to the issue of domestic violence. Another initiative, Purple Hijab Day, encouraged Muslim women to wear purple headscarves, a color of remembrance for victims and a symbol of the fight against abuse. Activist groups like Turning Point and the Peaceful Families Project organized workshops on healthy relationships determined to turn grief into prevention. Meanwhile, online forums...
It's just crazy. It's just crazy how far that developed. When looking at this, I should read the Quran to you. So you get the right to wear the cool white cap. I don't think I will.
Forums and talk radio lit up with a single phrase, honor killing. Commentators insisted her murder was rooted in cultural or religious codes that condone killing women for disobedience. Anti-Muslim activists seized on the case, using it to portray Islam as violent. But others pushed back hard. This was not an honor killing, they said. It was domestic violence, the same cycle of abuse that devastates families across the United States.
Who says it can't be both? The domestic abuse was domestic abuse. The honor killing was honor killing. One leads to the other.
I'm so glad you bring this up, Ishwarya, because I know for a fact, even for this case, this video will draw so many people here to watch this that are maybe here for the wrong reasons or come with their own biases. Because whenever we cover a case that pertains to a certain community, whether ethnic or religious, people who are bigoted against that community will fill our comments with how it's that community's fault this has happened. While they won't realize that we have covered n number of cases of the same type from their community. And this happens across the board. There is no one religious group or ethnic group that does this. All of them do it. And the extremists of all sort of wager in their notions in the comments. My only thing to them and to people listening is domestic abuse has nothing to do with religion. Domestic abuse is found in all religions and in all ethnicities. This happened not because of a specific religion, and that's just something.
Yes, the domestic abuse didn't. The killing, however, did. And that's unrefutable when we look at multiple cases of honor killings.
Something we need to be mindful of. It happens because of a culture that may overlap with religion, but the culture is the issue. And this culture is omnipresent across South Asian societies, whatever the religion may be. And that's something I want to drill home. We don't condone some of the comments you might see on this video also saying, oh, this happens because they're that people. No, this happens because we as a society, especially in South Asia, are desensitized to domestic violence. Ask women in violent relationships in India today, women who've been in marriages for 20 plus years, women who are beaten up, you ask them, are you domestically abused? Are you a victim of domestic abuse? And they would say no. Because half the times, they don't even know they don't deserve to be hit. Because just of the lack of awareness and the cultural problem we have fostered. So just something I would like to point out for people who might want to start playing a blame game in the comment section.
Absolutely, and it kind of reminds me of the Kiranjit Ahluwalia case, That case became a trailblazer in the West for what were predominantly white cases of white victims of domestic abuse. And I have a list of other cases I mentioned that because of Kiranjit's, incredible courage of speaking out, of fighting for justice, that she went on to influence and have a positive impact on. It's this long list of all white women abused by all white Christian husbands. And so, yeah, it just reminds me of that. This is multifaceted. This is multicultural. This crosses boundaries. It has so much more to do with than this. Activists across the country chimed in too. To call it an honor killing, activist Sara Saeed argued, was to exoticize a crime that in truth mirrored the epidemic of domestic abuse in America. But in one of the most heartwarming moments of this case, Mary Travers Murphy, the Orchard Park town supervisor who had received the call from the local inspector informing her of the murder, went on to establish a satellite office of the Family Justice Center in Orchard Park. The center offers victims legal assistance, counseling, safety planning, and connections to shelters. Mary later said she was haunted by Asia's death and channeled her grief into a mission to help other survivors. Since 2009, the FJC has served thousands of clients, many of whom credit the center with saving their lives. As days passed, family and friends arrived in New York to say one final goodbye to Asia. Her sister Asma flew in from Pakistan to attend the funeral. She told reporters that she had spoken to Asia on the day of the murder, hearing her urge Mo to calm down. At first, Asma believed her sister had been shot. When she learned the truth that Asia had been decapitated, she collapsed.
That's like crazy work, right? You're like going there, like you're the sister or family, you go there, and like you heard your daughter was, or your sister was beheaded. Like how do you'll never be able to cope with that in any way, shape, or form. Not even a little bit. There's no way you can cope with that.
She remembered the bruises, the times she had helped her sister hide in a locked bathroom while Mo pounded on the door, the nights they whispered over the phone about escape plans. And she remembered the silence. Not just hers, but the community's. Quote, "The community gave Mo too many chances," she said, her voice breaking. "We all kept quiet."
Obviously, they gave him way too many chances. I mean, look at the dude. I mean, straight up, look at the dude, right? The two previous marriages were already abusive. What did you expect that the third one was not?
Were all guilty as well. Those who couldn't travel to New York mourned in their own cities and countries. In Karachi, Asia's hometown, the mourning was just as deep. Women's rights groups like the Aurat Foundation pointed out that domestic violence cuts across every social class and urged the government to pass stronger protection for women. Newspapers printed tributes to Asia, remembering her as an intelligent, compassionate woman who had once designed community housing for low-income families. Her friends and family spoke of her love for architecture, her habit of reading late into the night, her dream of one day building a school for girls. They wanted her remembered not just as a beheading victim, but as a visionary. Then came the day everyone had been waiting for. After his arrest, Mo was charged with second-degree murder. Prosecutors chose not to pursue a first-degree charge, believing that proving premeditation beyond hours of planning would be difficult, even though he had purchased the knives that day. In the state of New York, second-degree murder carries a maximum sentence of 25 years to life. That's what Mo was fighting against. Mo initially pleaded not guilty and...
I think he deserves the death penalty. I think he does. Looking at the severity of what happened, yeah.
Hired attorney James Harrington. But soon, his statements grew bizarre. In jailhouse interviews, he claimed he was the real victim, that Asia was mentally ill, that she had beaten him, and that he killed her in self-defense. In his closing arguments, he compared himself to Nelson Mandela, Ronald Reagan, and Mahatma Gandhi, framing
yeah, bro is schizoing. Put this man away.
His actions as the stand of a man resisting an oppressive system. It would take 3 years for the case to reach trial, delayed by legal motions and shifts in defense strategy. Then, in a dramatic twist, Mo fired his attorney and chose to represent himself. Court observers were stunned. Here was a man with no legal training, accused of one of the most shocking murders in Western New York history, deciding to cross-examine witnesses himself.
Oh yeah, bro was definitely, after this one, bro was started schizoing 100%.
Believed he wanted to control the narrative. Others thought he aimed to intimidate Asia's family, while others yet thought he had just lost his mind. He told the judge he would argue that he was a battered spouse, an unusual defense for a man accused of decapitation. He even planned to call his own children to testify about their mother's alleged violence. But unfortunately for him, during the trial, prosecutors presented overwhelming evidence. Police officers testified about past domestic calls. Doctors described treating Asia's injuries. Neighbors recounted hearing screams from the Hassan home. The prosecution played the surveillance footage of the murder, a harrowing choice meant to capture the brutality of the
Bro, that's an entire room full of needing therapy after this one.
attack. The jury watched in silence as the 37 seconds of her head being sawed off played on courtroom video, some jurors even covering their eyes. Prosecutor Colleen Curtin Gable argued that Mo killed Asia to punish her for filing for divorce. She pointed out that he had brought the knives hours earlier, hidden at the studio, and ambushed her. She told
Why would you show that? Why would you show that? Why would you show that?
jurors that Asia may have been conscious when he began cutting off her head. The killing
Oh, hopefully not. Hopefully she was just straight up already dead. Already unconscious. Please, no. No. Nah.
she said, was the, quote, final act of control and domination, end quote. Mo's defense for himself, on the other hand, was erratic and contradictory. He claimed post-traumatic stress disorder from his time as a banker after 9/11. He said Asia had been, quote, punching him for hours before he retaliated, a claim unsupported by any evidence. When he cross-examined his son Michael, he tried to coax him into describing his mother's temper. Michael, in tears, replied that it was his father who had been violent. At one point, Mo read a letter to the judge comparing himself to a character in A Few Good Men who confesses to a crime but insists that larger moral issues are at stake. He produced letters he had forged impersonating Asia and his mother, but the judge dismissed them as irrelevant. He refused to acknowledge the police reports and the medical records documenting years of abuse. The jury deliberated for barely an hour before returning with a surprise, surprise, guilty verdict. One juror later said there had been, quote, no question about his guilt. At sentencing, the judge called the murder the most savage he had ever seen in his career and noted Mo's complete lack of remorse. On March 9, 2011, Mo was sentenced to 25 years to life. Because New York law had eliminated parole for murderers in this category, he will most certainly spend the rest of his life behind bars. When the sentence was read, Mo smirked. Asia's family wept. They told the court they were relieved, but no sentence could bring her back. In prison, Mo has continued to cast himself as a martyr, writing blog posts railing against feminism and complaining about his treatment. He has filed multiple appeals, all denied. While technically eligible for parole in 2034, legal experts believe his release is highly unlikely. After the trial, Asia...
Yeah, better not release him. Again, I think for the severity of this, yeah, I think he's got to go. They won't make him go, but nah, bro, what the fuck are we doing? At least as long as he doesn't get out and rots in prison, we good. He smirked, yes, he smirked.
Asia's children were sent to live with her extended family in Pakistan. They have remained largely out of the public eye, but a family friend told a reporter they are thriving, attending school, playing sports, and honoring their mother's memory by volunteering at local charities. They are living proof that life can continue after trauma. Not the same life, but a life nonetheless. Michael and Sonia, Mo's children from his first marriage, have also spoken about the toll the case took on them. Michael testified at trial, recounting his father's violence. Since then, he has become an advocate for domestic violence awareness, sharing his story at universities and community centers, warning audiences to look for signs of abuse and to intervene early. As for Bridges TV, the network died with Asia. In the months following her death, funding evaporated, staff resigned, and investors backed out, all unwilling to associate with Mo. The station eventually ceased broadcasting. Its servers, microphones, and set pieces were auctioned off to pay debts. The dreams of a mainstream Muslim network in America may one day rise again, but not under the shadow of this tragedy. Now on to the larger picture. If you're listening to this and you are in a relationship that makes you feel unsafe, please know that you are not alone and you deserve to be safe. Reach out to a trusted friend, family member, or professional. Various helpline numbers in India, Pakistan, and the US will be available in the show notes of this episode. If you're outside these countries, find a local hotline or contact an NGO. It's not your fault. You do not deserve...
Well, not here, not in the UK. You cannot access those because, well, child safety. You need to confirm your age. Just a fun fact. If you didn't know that, now you do. For example, the sewer slide hotline, you cannot access that without being able to confirm your age. Especially if you're underage, the more you know. This has nothing to do with DV, but still. We're still with domestic violence, but you know. and here they cut funding for that too, by the way, here in Germany.
Abuse, and there is help. If you like what we do here at Desi Studios, and
I found it funny how that just transitions into like this somewhat happy outro. I must admit. Well, unfortunately, I did not get the end I was hoping for. I was hoping for the removal penalty. Unfortunately, that did not happen. Unfortunately, that did not happen. Yeah, reach out to somebody if somebody beats you. That's all I can say. Anyways, like, comment, and subscribe.